Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.
All right, Mehdi Paryavi, thank you so much for taking the time today. You are Chairman and CEO of the International Data Center Authority. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot to sort of think about here. Let me set it up in this sort of mindset here. On an era where digital transformation determines the fate of nations and corporations, Mehdi stands as one of the most influential thought leaders shaping our digital future. As chairman and CEO of the International Data Center Authority, Mehdi leads what is recognized as the world's largest digital economy think tank, advising governments from the United States to India, the United Nations, and technology giants including Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. But his influence extends far beyond corporate boardrooms. He is the architect of revolutionary concepts that are redefining how we understand digital infrastructure in the 21st century by pioneering work on application-centric data center models, and also which has had a fundamental shift on how Fortune 100 companies and governments approach digital transformation. While he recently released Global Digital Economy Report reveals surprising truths about which nations are truly winning the digital race. All right, May, there's a lot going on. Clearly, you are a busy man and a very well accomplished person. But I would really love to hear a little bit more about your background. What led you to where you are today?
Well, I personally started as a decision information systems expert and quickly got into the infrastructure side of things and realized that, in my era, when I was an engineer, everybody wanted to be in telecom and networking. And, I realized that the future will be in infrastructure. At the time, the term digital infrastructure didn't exist, but data centers were very appealing to me. And we got deep and wide into it. And as we progressed, we realized that data centers are the future of digital economies. I mean, look at our own economy in the US. The economy runs on the Googles and Apples and Amazons. And where would they be? Where would their valuation be without their data centers? I mean, that data refinery that sits in the back, doing all the compute, doing all the analysis, doing all the data processing, is really what is enabling our economies worldwide. And therefore, we got into digital economy. We invited the community, we invited the industry, we invited world leaders, and we were lucky enough to be received with warm welcome. And therefore, we're a think tank trying to help the world make it a better place.
No, fantastic. Okay, so let's get into a few questions that I'm kind of curious about, and my research of some of the things that you've been working on and some of the papers that you've written. One thing shows that, and I may have this wrong, so correct me if I go astray here, that 15 countries, including Slovenia, now surpass the UK in digital economy development, challenging these long-held beliefs about our global digital leadership. What key misconceptions about digital competitiveness are causing nations to miss out on all of this growth that's possible right now?
So first of all, digital readiness is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So where countries stand today is not a true reflection of where they'll be in 5 to 10 years. A lot of countries are and we know for a fact they're in the process of planning and doing their homework, and a lot of them are attracting investment. But in general, the smaller you are and the better situated you are on the world map, that gives you a natural leverage, a natural edge. So to break this apart, basically, to drive to lead the digital economy frontier, you need to have the following things. First, you need to have a national roadmap for success. How do I envision my country to compete globally or collaborate globally with other nations? And where do I need my digital economy to be in the next 5 to 10 years? Within that overarching plan, you need to have a national standard that defines basically your legislation, your policies. How do you interact with the rest of the world, with vendors, with anything digital? And all the do's and don'ts need to be stipulated in those standards, whereby it makes it easy and predictable for investors to trust your nation with their money, basically, and they can feel safe to scale with you. Next, you need a national education system. So you need to be able to upskill and reskill talent so they can provide the human capital necessary to fuel the digital economy. And then, of course, you need a digital infrastructure. But digital infrastructure has some prerequisites. For example, energy. Energy is a huge bottleneck. So in North America, we're expecting we need to live up to at least 120 gigawatt of energy by 2030, and the rest of the world at least another 130 gigawatts. So where are we going to come up with this energy from? Who's going to provide it? That leads you to some energy-rich nations, and that gives them some leverage and some natural intrinsic advantage right there. But then there are countries who are really trying to bring foreign investment, invest in the grid, invest in innovative power technology and so on and so forth. Then you need water. An average, I would say, 100 megawatt data center can consume 1.1 megawatt gallons of water per day on a high end. So you need a lot of water. You need, as I said, human capital. You need to put all of this interactive and interwoven ecosystem in an environment that you can trust, that you can scale and grow with your investment. Therefore, countries have a lot on their hand. They really, and one of the biggest problems is that the legislator and the policymakers and the politicians are not really up to speed with the latest changes of technology, and that makes it even more difficult. But just to give you a rundown, US stands at number 40 in our ranking on the global digital readiness, whereas the Scandinavian countries and Finland stand as global leaders. UK is actually not doing that bad, but among the developing nations, Brazil has made some progress, Malaysia has made some progress, and Vietnam in Southeast Asia, Rwanda in Africa is a definite leader. So everybody is trying to do what they can. And in the Middle East also, there's a lot of activities, a lot of investments going on. So it needs a deep dive conversation. This is a very complex topic.
It definitely is, and I just came from maybe a conference that you were at as well in DC, where Dr. Eric Schmidt got up and he spoke about where the United States is with both data centers as well as energy, and he compared them to China. And I'm an optimist, but what he was basically saying was that we are in a deep, deep hole in terms of how much energy we're producing or lack therein, vis-a-vis what China is doing, as well as the data centers. I mean, the regulation that we have in the United States in terms of building, whether it's nuclear or anything else, is so incredibly difficult that we're not even becoming close to what we need to for power. Only avenue forward for us is leveraging Canada. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course, Canada is a great reservoir of natural resources. But I think the ultimate solution to our absence of energy and shortages is nuclear. But nuclear is years down the road, SMRs specifically. In the interim, everybody's trying to tap into natural gas, and that's where Canada can come into big play. But with regards to China, I have a little bit different perspective. I like to have strong competitors. I think it helps us at home to become more innovative and more progressive when our benchmark is higher. So as the rest of the world progresses, I think if the pressure is on, we as a nation, we've proven that we can do a lot better.
Interesting. Okay, fair enough. I think I read something somewhere that Google searches generate 7 grams of CO2 per search. So if we have 3.5 billion searches daily, we're looking at massive environmental impact. How do we resolve that paradox where you have this push towards knowledge and this push towards these types of things, but you're trying to balance the environmental aspect of these?
Yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, I had this same conversation on BBC. A ChatGPT search, an average ChatGPT search consumes 10 times of a Google search.
Yeah.
But again, for you to come up with a complex resolution that you can come up with one search from ChatGPT, you probably need to do around 10 searches on Google. So that balances off. But the real problem is every time we talk about a Google search, a ChatGPT search, a digital economy topic, the end game is data centers, because where the data is being processed, analyzed, and pushed through, and the energy is being burned is at the data center level. So to shed some perspective here, US is home to 44% of world's data centers. Put that number in your head. And then, yet, we produce 175 cubic metric tons of CO2 per every $1 billion of GDP. This is where the world's average is 350. China and India are 700. Scandinavian countries are standing at around 100. That simple math shows you that more data centers, modern data centers, not the traditional ones, can actually impact the environment in a positive way. They can actually make it cleaner. Why? Because data centers are not just sitting there burning fuel because they want to burn fuel. They're actually making every other industry smarter. So everything else from healthcare to retail to aviation, they're burning less fuel because the data is being rendered by data centers in a smarter way, and therefore they can perform functions with less input. Now, with that said, this doesn't include the rising demand of 600% of more data centers that need to be commissioned within the next 5 years. Data centers, end of the day, they would need energy. So how do you solve that? The root cause of this is not the data centers, it's not the digital economy, it's our consumption model. It's just like the discussion that vegetarians have against people who eat beef, how many cows can we, it's the same topic.
Yes.
So every time you take 6 pictures of the same scene and throw it on the cloud, you're burning energy. Every time you use ChatGPT for something obvious, you're burning energy. If we are conscious in our mind about how much data we generate and how much data we demand, then we become environmentally friendly. Data centers are just fulfilling the functions we want them to fulfill. So it all goes back to the way we live and our lifestyle and everything else. So it's a very, again, another complex topic here.
There's too many of them. All right, so you've spoken about a number of these different searches that people are making, of course, through one of the LLMs. Clearly, OpenAI dominates that space for now. I mean, Gemini is fantastic. Perplexity is excellent. There's a lot of great ones out there. But the one thing that we're starting to see more and more of is that people are relying and becoming more dependent on these types of searches. And we're starting to see measurable diminishing of human critical thinking skills. Are we seeing the beginning of the end of human cognitive in terms of their atrophy of their brains because they're not using their brains to think, they're just plugging things in and getting things out, and that's it?
Honestly, it's difficult to argue otherwise.
Yeah.
So my perspective to this is that, I mean, we are in IT, we are in this business, but I run a family, and I believe that I'm worried about the future generations because this is the first time in human history we have created a tool that is stronger than us, not only by muscle mass, but also by sheer cognition. It's taking away our ability to analyze, to be creative, to decide, and to judge. And that is the only thing that was left of us. I mean, our forefathers didn't go to gyms. They were physically fit because their day-to-day work made them fit. But then we started sitting on the chair and doing office work, and then we have to go to the gym to stay healthy. I believe we're going to reach a point where we need to subscribe to some mental fitness gyms that can keep our brain muscles healthy because we're just not exercising those muscles anymore. I personally try to, at least for myself and within my family, I try to stay conscious of the fact that the more we rely on these tools and this automation, the less we can rely on ourselves and the less competent we become. A very simple example is, you and I, we travel the world and we used to take a map and just drive anywhere and we would never get lost. My wife used to say, I'm a natural GPS. But then with the excuse of it's gonna tell me the traffic pattern and whatever, we start adapting GPS, and now even in my hometown I have to use GPS. So I've lost that capability in myself. The same thing is gonna happen in every other capability that your cognition is today providing you. So that's my take on it.
No, and I appreciate that. You're the first person I've heard that said that, and I agree with it 100%. So along those lines, what are you telling maybe your kids, your nephews, or your nieces, or young children these days about what they could possibly do or where they should direct their attention for education? Like I personally just have no idea. I used to be able to advise on that sort of thing, But now it seems like nothing is off the table when it comes to being able to leverage AI in a different capacity.
My personal practice, and I don't want to enforce this on anybody, is that AI and its capabilities are great for healthcare research. They're great for heavy industries and everything to push humanity forward, even for cybersecurity and many other topics. But on day-to-day basis, for us human beings, they should not be used. They just take away our ability to be human beings. I tell my kids, I tell my family members, whoever asks for my opinion, I tell them, just try to think independent. Just try to analyze things. Just read the report yourself. I mean, if there is something that is, so I was in a conference and it was an AI conference, and everybody said, "Can you come to the board and write something about what does AI take away from you?" And everybody wrote something. And I was at the back of the room and I raised my hand. I said, "I don't see something here." And everybody said, "What?" I said, "I don't see the right to be independent." And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "When I am at school and every other kid is using AI and I don't, I'm naturally gonna be delivering slower and poorer results. If I'm at work and I'm working on the same project with my colleagues, I'm naturally gonna be delivering less results for the same amount of time I put in if I stay away, if I refrain from using AI. And therefore, I don't have the right to be independent and think independently because I'm forced to use it. Otherwise, I'll lose my job. Otherwise, I'm not going to get good grades and so on and so forth. So I think this needs to go at the highest levels of leadership at the global level, on the global stage, for people who actually care for their nations, their citizens, and their families, to see where do they draw the line. How this is a very powerful tool. It's an atomic bomb at the hand of everybody. How do you use it? How do you use it, and where do you use it, and where are the applications and implications of it? Somebody needs to take a step back and think about all of this, and then prescribe for the rest of the world.
I just don't see how we're going to get everyone on the same page about that sort of thing.
It's difficult because money pushes the agenda, and people make money from this stuff, and not necessarily all the tech companies are in it for the benefit of humanity. So I don't want to get political here, but you look at the valuation of these huge companies, very difficult to stop the movement.
Fascinating. Okay, something to think about. So in some ways, I have to consider you a bit of a gymnast on a balancing bar, because you advise on one side Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, so another tech giants, but you're also working with government agencies who are potentially regulating those same companies. How do you balance that, if that makes sense?
Well, we're vendor neutral and we're extremely independent thinkers. This is what makes us a powerful think tank, because even within our board, nobody agrees on the same things. I mean, you have to have people who disagree on things, and you have to listen to opposing opinions. One of the biggest problems today, you see the social gap we have here in the US. If I'm a CNN watcher or a Fox Newser, we don't even believe in each other anymore because I'm being fed what I want to hear, and I never ever give myself the opportunity to hear the other side, because social media feeds me what I want to see and what I want to hear. So the automation and the algorithms are actually getting us further and further away from each other. And it is good to have people on the opposite side to always brainstorm with and talk to. And that's exactly the role we play with governments. That's the role we play with hyperscalers, with cloud operators, with AI companies. We even certify AI chips. We vet government agencies, service providers. And the only way you can do that is if you think outside the box and if you stay independent.
Okay, that makes good sense. So I know that IDCA research shows that massive shortages of digital skills across the nations. So individuals, kids are not getting those skills, and it's taking a long time before people will sort of reconfigure the way kids are learning. So how do you see this going forward? How are we going to be able to shift scholastics systems at such a massive scale to get people in the right position for the skills that we're going to need going forward?
Honestly, I don't think anybody has had the time nor the conceptualization capability to wrap their head around this. I believe there is a huge wave of unemployment coming in for the sheer fact that we're entering the world of Gen AI and and agentic AI and agents, AI agents are going to be driving the future. So you don't need all the people around you anymore. You just tell the AI agents to do whatever you want, and they're at your fingertips. And they don't expect salaries, they don't expect insurance, they don't expect the overhead. So what are we going to do with everybody else that is going to lose their jobs? It's subject to discussion, and I think everybody is just pushing it to tomorrow to see what's going to happen, and then we deal with it when it happens. But it's a very complex issue. It deserves a very deep dive conversation. It's a social, economical, environmental topic. It impacts families. It impacts societies. It impacts global, international trade and bilateral trade. It's a political topic. There's trillions of dollars of money behind this. It's not simple. You and I cannot sit in a room and solve it. We need to have a broader conversation.
No, I absolutely agree with that. Sorry, I have one more question, but before I do that, is there anything else about the IDCA or anything else that you'd like to mention?
No, I think everybody knows who we are and what we do. Our mission is to help the world become a better place, and we really mean it. You saw I'm extremely blunt and straightforward about my opinions. We believe that this world is a world that, with digital economies, it can deserve a more peaceful and more prosperous environment for everybody. And the only way to achieve that is by international consensus, global. I just came from the United Nations conference, and I was speaking there. I see all these world leaders, all these investors, all these institutions coming, spending money, researching. But what is the output? What are we actually doing on the ground? That is the key. What is actually getting done? I think where IDCA can come in is we can provide this independent dimension and this holistic overarching agenda where, based on every nation's capabilities and intrinsic resources, what can you do to stay ahead of the game? And what can you do to make the life better for your citizens? And what can you do to attract better investments? And how can you optimize the utilization of those investments? And what would the future look like with your neighbors in your regions and with other subcontinents? And this entire ecosystem that we're all involved in is changing so rapidly, that it's difficult for human beings to, especially the legislator and the politicians, to even have the time or the capacity to digest it. So you need an independent organization that can come in and provide, shed some light, at least provide a little bit of light here and there, so that you can make better decisions forward. So that's what we do, and we're extremely honored and privileged. I mean, the amount of welcome and the reception we're seeing from all the nations, all the agencies around the world is exceptional. So we're lucky to be here.
No, I'm on the same page. I've probably done 350 talks around the world. I spend time talking to people almost every day about these particular topics because they're so important. I've been doing this for the last 10 years, primarily in exponential technology itself. But one of the things that sort of moved up on my timelines, I have timelines, and people can go back to videos, they can go back to my written pieces that talk about the singularity. And I used to say that was a 2043, 2045. Now I would bump that to probably 2030, maybe even sooner. Some people are saying 2035. But when we get to that point, the singularity, we become the chickens to humans, right? So there's a new human, and we are not that. We don't have that knowledge. When and if this happens, and I'm saying it's going to happen, some people say it's not going to happen, or it's going to happen hundreds, if not whatever, years away. What do you think that looks like? Do you think there's some room for concern there? Or you feel comfortable about potentially going in that direction?
I personally, as much as I can discuss and debate and criticize about the ongoing progression of some of the technologies and the direction we're headed, I'm faithful to the future of humanity, and I believe that we're moving on a macro level, we're moving towards a positive direction. Look at what human life matters today versus what it meant 500 years ago, 300 years ago, 60 years ago. You know, my grandmother had, I don't know, 10 children, 4 of them died. You know, it was something normal. But today, every human life matters, time matters. I believe that everything that's happening around us is just keeping us on the edge and on our toes in order to innovate and push the envelope and come together as one human body. I'm originally Persian, so I'm Persian American. I love poetry, and there is a poetry by Sadi, the Shirazi poet, who says all human beings are limbs of one body, and if one limb hurts, everybody else will be in pain. And this is written on the doors of the United Nations as well, this poet and this poetry. I believe in that, and I believe that we're getting closer and closer to that point. And with all the criticism we can have, which is all healthy, I think, let me give you one quick example, and I don't want to prolong this. I wrote a blog 6-7 years ago about politics. And I said, everybody says politicians are not the best people out there, but I believe in 10 or 20 years, they will become the cleanest and most transparent people on the planet. Why? Because we all leave digital footprints. And within 20 years' time, if I want to run for presidency, I need to provide the right to people who are going to vote for me to see my digital footprint. So people say, okay, you want us to vote for you. Let us have your Facebook account. Let us see how you talk to your friends. Let us see what kind of person, what kind of jokes you throw around. And then that shows my full, my inside story and who I am as a person. And therefore, technology is enabling the transparency, and transparency is getting rid of corruption and is making us better human beings as we go forward. That is a solid belief that I have in general.
I appreciate that optimism, and it's something that I think we'll see play out in one way or another. I just have a hard time wrapping my arms around the idea that any species that has lower, let's say, IQ versus another IQ can control it. So you have a species with 10 IQ, it's not controlling the 100 IQ species. And we're going to have species that's basically coming from all of this. It's going to be way more intelligent than us. And I just don't know how human beings are going to be able to control that. We'll see. I mean, it's going to be fast.
We're not going to be able to control anything if we don't contain AI within a legal framework. This is pure and simple. The only thing, there is no way to stop the technology. The only thing is the legal framework around it. So where do we draw the lines? Where does it become dangerous? Where does it get into our way of remaining to be human beings? This is something that needs to be defined at national levels, at the leadership levels, and the global level. It needs to be at the top agenda of the United Nations, honestly. So this is a very important topic.
But I don't think there's going to be a way for us to get there. If we can't agree on the environment, how can we agree on this? It's going to be like some major thing is going to happen, unfortunately, that's going to affect millions of them.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Love the insights and the thoughts, thought-provoking stuff. So, Mehdi, thank you so much. Hodafez.
Thank you for having me.
Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.